basically I'm just going to do like a little intro and then we're just going to get straight into it, really. Do you mind talking into your one just to
One,
make
two,
sure?
three, four.
Okay.
Hello.
Awesome.
Yep.
Right. Ready to go?
Ready.
Awesome. Okay, hey team, and welcome back to another episode of Toe the Line. I have a very exciting guest here today. If you know me well and you've listened to my early podcast episodes, then you'll know that I don't shut up about motorsport. I'm a big motorsport nerd, so today's guest is very exciting to me. He doesn't need much of an intro, but for those of you who don't know, Greg Murphy is probably most well known for winning Bathurst not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times.
Not enough.
Not enough.
No.
And if that's not enough, he raced a number of races, 448 to be exact, 81 podiums, 28 career wins over almost 2 decades under his belt. It's kind of hard to pinpoint just one thing that you're most well known for. So Greg, welcome to Toe the Line.
Thank you, Taylor. I'm stoked to be here. Well done. Great location too.
Oh, 100%.
One of my favourite spots in Auckland, actually.
Cycle spot. I was just saying to Melissa when I came in here that this is my first time being in here, and I reckon I could sleep in here every night.
I'm with you on that. I mean, it's the colour and just the layout. I mean, it's motorbike, but anyone that's into bikes, cars, or motorsport of any descriptor, I mean, this is a little bit of heaven.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like, I've never ridden a motorbike in my life, but I might just
Yeah.
take one of these for a spin after we're done here.
Yeah. Good idea.
But yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. We were talking just before, and I am just so grateful that you're here. I think my family and I haven't grown up watching motorsport. I've kind of got myself into motorsport over the last 5 or 6 years, and I just think to have someone like yourself here chatting with me today, if you told me that I was going to be doing this at the start of the year, I never would have believed you. But I'm just so excited that you're here.
Oh, you're very kind. I'll do anything these days for
I know you're a very humble man as well, so you probably don't like hearing all that stuff.
Not really.
Understandable. My first but most probably important question is, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Come to the end of another pretty chaotic kind of year, but I'm pretty lucky. Really, I think I get to do a lot of different things. I don't sort of have a normal day as such. I'm always moving around New Zealand quite a lot, and get to do a whole lot of cool things that I really enjoy doing. I get to work with Stephen McIver doing Sky Speed, which we do 40 weeks of the year, talking about motor racing and cars and bits and pieces. And we come into Cycle Spot and use this as one of our filming sort of places quite often as well. So I get to do that. I get to still have touch points with motorsport. I'm involved with a few trusts and foundations, and also got some great partners and companies that I do ambassador work for, and also fit in between that, sort of promoting or trying to campaign for better road safety in New Zealand and a bunch of other things. So so every week is a little bit different, but it's nice to be at the end of another year and have a bit of time to relax and recharge. Yeah,
I bet. And you were just down in, was it Rotorua or Taupo for?
Rotorua.
It was Rotorua for it was like an invitational speedway event.
Yeah, that was just on last weekend. So Steve Williams put together an event at the Paradise Valley Rotorua Speedway, and we had there was me and 11 of me compatriot mates, motorsport mates, that all joined together, and we had just an amazing couple of days racing stock cars or super stocks at the speedway, and along with all the other classes and other competitors and everybody that turned up, raised a whole bunch of money for Starship and Ronald McDonald House. So
that's so cool.
It was, and so we got to have a whole lot of fun raising money for 2 amazing causes.
Yeah, 100%. Stock cars actually was my first ever introduction to motorsport. I think when I was 12 or 13, my dad took me to a couple of race weekends because we used to live in Tauranga, and he took me to Bay Park for the stock cars there, and I didn't really understand what was going on. I just knew that it was noisy. To bear in mind, I was 12 or 13, and I just knew it was noisy, it was dirty. I was a bit OCD with getting dirty. I didn't love it a whole bunch, but there was good food, lots of people.
Well, how can you go wrong with hot dogs and hot chips? And
100%.
it's like this. my stable diet. That is. So, it's mega. People are fantastic. They're there to have a good time. A lot of V8s screaming their heads off.
Such a good community of people as well.
Great community.
I think out of all the sports that I'm across, I'd probably be confident in saying that motorsport's probably one of the best communities to be a part of. It's just so fun. People are so carefree. They're just there to see fast cars and guys flinging around corners and all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah, and it seems it's across the board. There's so many different disciplines, obviously, of motorsport. You know, I mean, 2 wheels, 4 wheels. There's off-road, there's speedway, there's motocross, there's circuit racing. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And we've as a country, I think our participation per capita. I just can't think that there'd be another country that has a bigger sort of per capita following or involvement from the competitor side and the fan side. I don't reckon there'd be anywhere in the world that's bigger than us. So we are a nation of petrol heads, which comes from decades and decades ago, and also our success in the sport across all disciplines is world renowned as well.
Yeah, 100%. Now, before we get into your career, I want to know a little bit about Greg's early days before you got into motorsport. What were you like as a kid at school? Did you do well at school? All that sort of stuff before you got into racing.
I wouldn't say I did well at school.
Be honest.
Oh yeah. Well, the report cards are still in existence somewhere for proof. I think I was. One of the comments that was pretty repetitive in all my report cards was I was easily distracted, or I was the one distracting.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that was pretty common. I wasn't exactly a great scholar. Yeah. To be honest, it wasn't my thing. I didn't really know what I was going to do.
Neither was I, don't worry.
All the way through my schooling. I mean, I did last all the way through, though. Yep. I managed to get through to 7th form or whatever it now, year 13,
yeah.
And got through all my high school and passed. Back then, I finished school in 1990, yep. So it was a bursary back then, so I got a bursary which is university entrance effectively. So I did that, but I still was a little bit lost on where I was going. My 7th form year, I ended up applying for the Air Force. I actually wanted to be a pilot. I loved flying and sort of early years when I was quite young. I grew up around helicopters because my dad used to work for a helicopter company in Hawke's Bay, so I used to spend a lot of time. So I was I was fascinated with flying and fascinated with helicopters and flying machines. So I applied for the Air Force. At the same time, I also applied for a racing scholarship.
Okay.
So I'd been racing go-karts. My dad and I used to travel all around the countryside. An amazing karting community. We had an amazing Hawke's Bay Kart Club, which we were a big part of, and so about 10 years I spent racing karts. Yep. So I was doing that, loved aviation, loved flying, applied for the Air Force, didn't get accepted as a pilot, and that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a pilot, so I didn't get accepted. And at the same time, I won this racing scholarship, and that was a little bit out of left field. And basically, my last year at school finished, and then for the summer, I went off and went car racing. But as part of the scholarship, so that was my first attachment to motorsport. All my schooling led to a point where I ended up finishing and going off and racing cars, which had nothing to do with anything I'd spent doing for the last however many years at school. And I don't think I've really applied anything that I did all that time. I think it all got filed very, very far back in my hard drive in my brain.
Yeah, don't worry. I don't even remember half the stuff I learned in school.
I've been useless with my kids. They've had to. Their mother, or they've had to get other people to help them with all their homework because I was useless.
I just remember all those tears I cried over not being able to understand maths or do maths properly, or my dad yelling at me because I wasn't getting it, and I'm like, what does it even matter now? So I'm glad you're on the same page.
I've got a laptop and an iPad,
it's all good. Use a calculator on the iPad. You kind of briefly touched on it, but what kind of were your first initial experiences with motorsport, and what made you want to get into racing?
The initial touch point was when I was about 8 years old. My dad and I ended up going out to the local kart track. We saw an ad in the paper, as you did back then.
Yeah.
And it was like a Sunday, Hawke's Bay Kart Club Club Day.
Yeah.
And it was like, we should go and have a look at that. So we wandered out to the kart track and was just like, holy moly, how long's this been going on? And how do we get involved in that?
Yeah.
One thing very quickly led to another, and next minute we're club members and we're immersed in the local kart club, and my dad had a kart, and then it was not long after that I ended up with a kart, and that's where our world began, the motorsport world for us began. And as I said, it was just all fun. It was just a really social time, amazing group of people. So we loved it for that reason, and also just the competition side of things, and we got a little bit more serious. And as I say, that was 10 years of that.
Yeah.
But really, no other sort of contact or touch point with motor racing. We didn't know. We knew a few other karters that ended up branching into the next phase and going track racing.
Yeah.
But we sort of didn't sort of see that was something we were ever going to be able to do.
Yeah, for sure.
With all the financial restraints and stuff. And then, as I say, sort of 1990, there was a scholarship, inaugural scholarship, which offered a prize of racing Formula Ford in New Zealand through the New Zealand Formula Ford Championship through the 1990-91 season.
Yeah.
And it was a competition, and I entered that along with a lot of my mates that were racing go-karts at the time.
Yeah.
And I ended up being the fortunate winner of that. So it was a real integral moment, because if I hadn't won it, I don't know what would have happened. If I hadn't won that scholarship, I really don't know what would have happened. Yeah.
That's crazy when you think about that, like sitting here talking about it, it's a little bit crazy, isn't
it? It is. Oh no, you're 100% right. That's the way I look at it. When I've thought back on it over the years and just gone, what if? And it was just one of those things that did have a huge determination with my pathway.
Yeah, and then you look at the career you've had, which we're going to get into, and it's just like, if you hadn't have won that, then there's probably a very high likelihood that you probably wouldn't have ever driven.
I think so.
Supercars.
Yeah, I think having that taste of it, of driving racing cars on a racetrack, if I hadn't won it, I sort of feel that when I say we, was my dad and I would have tried to find some other way potentially, but there's a good chance that that it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So it's one of those sliding door moments, right? Or what is it? Is that what they call it?
I think so. Yeah.
Is that what it is? Can't remember. There's a movie about it, right? You walk out the door, turn left or turn right. Yeah, something like that.
Very true. Speaking of what if moments and kind of talking about your sort of pathway into, it was called Australian Touring Championship back then, or was it called Supercars?
No, it was called the Australian Touring Car Championship. Yeah.
Yeah.
So back in the 90s, through that period, it was the ATCC.
Yeah. So kind of thinking back to then, can you talk us through a little bit of your pathway? Because your first ever race, and this still blows my mind, but your first ever race was at Bathurst, and on the ATCC Championship. Can you talk us through your pathway to that, just a little bit in depth, and kind of give people an idea of what kind of led you to that moment? Yeah,
sure. So it was pretty interesting. I mean, once I got into racing in New Zealand. I did the first year as under the scholarship, and then the second year my dad and I found a way to put together some money to race in another New Zealand championship throughout the summer, and this sort of went on for a few years, and I was obviously going reasonably well and getting some recognition, and so therefore doing the whole sponsorship thing and bits and pieces, and then so in 1994. The 94 season was a bit of an interesting one, because there were some Aussies came over and brought some cars over to race in our premier sort of single-seater championship, which was also what the New Zealand Grand Prix was run under. And so 1994, we put together a deal with our sponsors at the time, and leased a car from Australia. They were called Formula Holdens, or Formula Brabhams, they were sort of known as. And we leased a car, and that came over from Australia, and we competed in that car and won the Gold Star Championship and won the New Zealand Grand Prix. And so things were going really well in New Zealand, but again, it was just New Zealand. There was sort of much more after that. And we were talking to the Aussie guys, and they had their championship kicking off in April in Australia, and Dad and I discussed it, and we had a little bit of money left over from our season, and we basically, took the punt and did a bit of a deal with some of the Aussie guys, and went over to Australia and started the Australian Drivers' Championship at Sydney Motorsport Park in '94, and had success straight away. And that got me a little bit of recognition, and a guy by the name of Peter Addison, who is the Boost Mobile founder, was at that meeting, and he was part of the beginning of, at that point, the Australian 2-litre championship, as it was. And he wandered into the garage where I was sitting at the end of the Sunday afternoon of that first race meeting, and came over and said, "Oh, who are you and what's your story? Where are you from?" And I told him. He goes, "Oh, do you want to drive a car for me at the next round in the touring cars, in the 2-litre touring cars?" And I was just like, "What's going on? This is insane." Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly what it was. And I talk about it quite a lot because people ask, but it was like the scholarship, winning that scholarship. This was the next big break, effectively. So we'd put together this one race meeting, done our homework, turned up, done well, won the 2 races, and that gave, that provided the opportunity, and also then the results provided I suppose that significant moment again that someone took notice. And Peter was the guy that took notice, and from there my relationship with him obviously grew, and he helped me massively through my first couple of seasons in Australia. So I was driving a 2-litre car in the new 2-litre championship, and then he put together a deal for myself and another guy, James Kay from England, to drive at Bathurst in this 2-litre car for the first time. So it was an incredible year. And then from that, some other stuff happened, and I then got a phone call from Jeff Greck from the Holden Racing team, who wanted me to come and do a test with him, with the Holden Racing team, to see if I was good enough to be one of their endurance drivers for the Holden Racing team. So things happened really quite quickly through that period, and again, it was right place, right time, but also making the most of every opportunity that big opportunities that were provided to me, and so those were the key facts of it.
Wow. Such an interesting pathway into it's just such you just nothing was planned, you just sort of kind of went along with everything and tried your best, and it was really small steps, and really making the most of single moments, right? Because we didn't have the resource, we didn't have the financial resource to make a big plan. And so it was like one day at a time kind of thing. And fortunately, I when those opportunities were presented, I was able to make the most of them at that time. Definitely. Speaking of endurance events, in 1996 you won the Bathurst 1000 and the Sandown 500, two of the biggest endurance events, with Craig Lowndes. Can you talk us through winning those two events and what it was like? And I just can't imagine what that would be like, because they're two of my favourite events.
Well, it was a little insane, really, as I say. So, I arrived in '94. I wasn't living in Australia in '94. I was going backwards and forwards, because it was just challenging again with the whole financial side of things, and Peter Addison was amazing. He was always looking after me when I was in Australia and stuff, and just those things that I did, was enough to warrant him and other people to give me another chance. And so in '95 I was part of the Audi team, the Audi 2-litre team in Australia, which was run by Brad Jones, and that again was because of Peter's influence. So he gave me a chance to drive for that factory team, and I got some results straight away, which then led to being sort of got that phone call from Jeff Greck to come and do a test. And '95, I was once that was announced, I was doing quite a lot of testing in the Group A car, as they called them, and I was teammates to Peter Brock, who was my idol. Right, I just idolised that guy.
Probably a lot of people's idols.
Mate, there's millions that did, but I was one of them. But here I am, just touching, pinching myself constantly, going, "Is this for real? Is this for real?" Here I am. I'm teammates with Peter Brock, and I'm only been here like 5 minutes. It was just bizarre. Anyway, so 95 was interesting because it was a disaster year for us. I was teammates with co-driver with Craig Lowndes, so the two of us were put together, and we were, this was an unusual thing because the heroes of the sport and the big names were all these, the Brocks and the Johnsons and the Bows and all these incredible names, the Perkins of the world and stuff, and here we were, a couple of young guys being given this opportunity. So there was a lot of question marks about it, but we didn't have a great season. We didn't finish the Sandown 500 in 95. We didn't finish Bathurst in 95. It was a bit of a shocker, and the team was under a lot of pressure. And so in 96, I continued driving the 2-litre cars, and loved driving those cars. They're amazing. But I also was spending a lot of time with the Holden Racing team, and doing a lot of testing. And Craig Lowndes was full time that year in 96. So and he just trounced the field. Won the touring car championship, put his name up in lights. He was the new star of the future, and that transitioned the sport quite a lot, because it was all of a sudden realised that, hey, there's some youth that are really good at this, So and then that started to change the just the way race teams were looking at who they were getting to drive and looking for succession plans. And so he and I teamed up. So second year endurance driver with Craig. He'd won the championship. We go to Sandown, and actually, we were actually deemed, one of the favourites for that race, which was incredibly nerve-wracking for me. I felt a lot of pressure because I was just the co-driver. Anyway, we win Sandown, and it was just like, holy moly, this is ridiculous. And then there's the whole, we're going to Bathurst next, and then there's the whole, you guys, favourites. And I'm like, oh my God, I do not want to be deemed a favourite. I was nervous, anxious. It was just a freak out. And anyway, interesting race, crazy race, and we ended up standing on the top step of the podium at the end of it, and it's just like, this is disbelief. I'd also been to Le Mans that year. I raced at Le Mans in the 24-hour Le Mans with
lots of endurance stuff.
Oh, it was crazy. It was just incredible with a team set up by Bill Farmer, a Kiwi businessman who put it together. It was the 30th anniversary of Kiwis winning at Le Mans back in 1966.
And that's no small event either.
Chris Amon and Bruce McLaren.
Le Mans is like a huge event.
Enormous. So I was a part of that, and then I was winning this, and then the year finished with the Mobile Sprint Series, which was here at Pukekohe in Wellington. It was the last ever Wellington street race. So I had this amazing year, won the Bathurst, and I come back to New Zealand to do this Mobile Sprint Series in November of 96, and there's just tens of thousands of people on the stands at Pukekohe, tens of thousands of people at Wellington, and I'm winning, and it just it completely and utterly just changed my life. And this is basically 2 years in, to it, and it was just an amazing part of my career, because it was what set me up for the future.
Yeah, wow. That's amazing. Like, when you think back, like when you're talking,
it's a long time ago.
When you're like talking about, like sitting here and talking about it, do you realise that that's what you did, or is it just like words coming out of you now? Because I know when I've talked about like my own experiences, sometimes I talk about them and it just doesn't really sink in that that's what I did or like what I achieved.
Well, it was a whirlwind, It was all still happening, and the thing is now you sort of, it's happening at the time, and you're fully immersed in it, and it's special, and it's what an amazing feeling and all this kind of stuff. But things just move on so quickly, and so if you talk about it now and you look back and you wish you could go back and experience it again, because again too, when you're talking about the 90s, things were so much cruisier, so much better, easier. Not as many rules, regulations, not being told what to do, not being restricted. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. It was just amazing. And now the expectation on people and sports people is just
massive.
So much harder. And you've got to toe the line with this, and you can't speak your mind, and you can't do all this other crap because it's unacceptable. Now, and which is just rubbish. So it was fun. It was a lot more fun back through that period, and I feel very privileged to have had my time through there because it was epic. It was so good.
Speaking of fun, 3 years later in 1999, yourself and Stephen Richards become the first ever all Kiwi pairing to win the Bathurst 1000.
Yeah.
And I read an article that you were interviewed for when I was researching this, and you said that it was only after Richie Stanaway and Shane Van Gisbergen won Bathurst earlier this year that you realised how big of a deal it was. Why did it take you so many years to realise that?
That's bizarre. It was just like a light bulb went off. You know, it's exactly that. And because someone made the comment about it in one of the reports after Richie and Shane won this year. They said, "Oh, it's the first Kiwi duo to win since Greg Murphy and Stephen Richards." And I was like, why have I never really thought about that? It was, and because at the time you win in '99, and it's not like Kiwis hadn't won it. You know, Jim Richards obviously was just huge. You know, all the way through, and you know, I was looking at it through very different eyes, I suppose, and seeing it for very different reasons. When we won it, there was so many other things going on that the whole Kiwi thing just didn't resonate so much. And then when someone made the point of it that we were the first to do it back then, it was like, oh, that's actually really cool. That's an awesome thing to have actually had happen. I'm glad that it was brought up and glad that it was made a point of. You know, because we're proud to have the Kiwi flag on our cars, of course, and it's always great to be able to steal one away from the Aussies as well. That's always good fun.
So true.
Yeah. So that was a cool thing. It was great to have those two guys do that this year, and they're just such awesome stories for both of them, and but particularly the time that I spent with Richie Stanaway and doing Bathurst last year. You know, it was mega to see him have his success.
I also, speaking of Richie, I saw in another article that I feel like with Richie, he's had such a hard go at motorsport, and I'm really excited to see him back actually next year in supercars. I think he'll be amazing. But he said that you were kind of the drive to get back into motorsport for him. What was that like pairing with Richie at Bathurst, and what was it like, you know, being a co-driver with him? Yeah,
and I was very much the co-driver, trust me. It was just a really important story. It was an important project.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, just the mental health thing.
Yeah.
In many respects, you know, he's such a brilliant race car driver. I mean, he's just so talented, and his pre-story is a really interesting one, and you know, and we've tried to tell it. Someone just walked straight through.
I was waiting for someone to do it.
Yeah, there's a big gap.
That's so funny.
You know, we've tried to tell it, and he's been really open about it when he has talked about it, and just the journey that he was on when he left here, and he was thrust into the international world and the European side of things very early and quickly because of his skill.
Yeah.
And then it started to crumble and started to fall apart, and we could talk about that for a long time. And then he ended up in Australia, and he wasn't given the support that he deserved and that he warranted as a professional race car driver. And you know, as it's turned out, he's had the last laugh on that. But at the time, he was discarded, just pushed aside. And all right, who's next? Who's coming back through? And he was forgotten about. And it's the brutality of this human nature that we have around the success, and we're just you're just another piece of meat. You know, we'll replace you. You know, we'll find someone else, and that's what happened. And it's, you know, that needs to be thought about more. You know, and you've got humans working really, really hard to try and achieve, and there's always two sides to the story, and his story wasn't listened to. I mean, he was very much the villain in it all, and that's a very strong word, but you know, trying to put it into context, and he was really cast aside by the sport, and that's what the sport does. It doesn't have time to to sit still and wait and or ask questions.
Yeah.
It just wants to move forward really quickly.
Definitely.
So to come back and do what he did and now be full time again next year,
I'm so excited for him.
I love the whole fact that it's a bit of a big middle finger to some of those people.
It is.
And that's great. You know, and I want to see him succeed so he can actually continue to hold the middle finger to some of these people who didn't believe and didn't want to and didn't want to take the time. So he's proved it, and he's back in the championship next year, and he will be.
I think he'll come back even stronger.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be amazing.
But the best part about it is he is stronger because he's been through such darkness, and now he comes back with an open mind.
Yeah.
And almost nothing to lose kind of thing too. The second chance thing, it makes him very powerful, and I just think that's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Let's talk 2003. A lot happened in 2003 at Mount Panorama. You were dubbed the lap of gods.
No, I didn't.
Well, other people did.
Thank God. I will not be bloody labelled with the person that deemed it, because that would make you a wanker. If I deemed it lap of the gods, it'd be like, it was like, it'd be like a total tool. So no, it wasn't me.
Hilarious. But you were the first ever driver at Mount Panorama Bathurst to go under the 2-minute and 7-second mark. What did you eat for breakfast on that day?
Yeah.
Did you have any energy drinks that day? Talk us through that.
Energy drinks weren't a thing.
Were they not?
I don't think so. I mean, Red Bull might have been I think it was around, but
maybe
no one
very
really.
Early.
Yeah, very early.
But
Shouldn't have been of a doctor.
I think I've watched that lap on YouTube about 25 times in the last 3 days because I just can't get enough of it. It's so good.
God, Taylor, come on. There's better things to do with your time.
No, definitely not.
Lucky it's only short. Lucky it's only 2 minutes and 6 seconds.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Can you talk us through that lap? What were you thinking beforehand? Were you nervous, and then tell us what happened after?
It was a bit of a crazy time. A crazy part of that year for sure. Things were changing in the sport quite a lot at that time. The cars were, and the competition was amazing. The Ford versus Holden thing was just so strong, and really privileged to be a part of that period of supercars, because it was epic. I mean, both brands were just tipping in so much money, and the drivers were benefiting, the teams were benefiting, the sport was benefiting, the fans were benefiting. Commodore and Falcon were big selling cars in Australia and New Zealand, and the popularity was huge, and so I was very lucky to be a part of that. And at the time, it sort of, the story probably does just starts 12 months earlier, really, because 2002 was a disaster. I not only was I first person to go into the 206 second bracket at Bathurst, I was also the first person in history to probably get a 5-minute penalty.
I wasn't going to put that in, but you brought it up.
12 months earlier, I got a 5-minute penalty for a fuel spill situation that happened in the pit lane, and that one's worth a watch too if you want to Google Bathurst Greg Murphy 5-minute penalty. That'll get you some entertainment. And so it was a little bit subliminal. 12 months later, we'd had a pretty good season, up and down. There'd been a few things happen in 2003 that were really positive, some that weren't so much. And we arrived at Bathurst very confident. The Kmart car was always fast there, always. The first 2 years that I'd been there, finished on the podium in 2001 with Todd Kelly. And again, the car was good enough to probably win that race that day. Just circumstance happens. It's just the way it is. 2002, same. Todd and I were very fast, and car was good enough, team was good enough to win that race, and we got a penalty for just a situation that happened in the pit lane. So 2003 turns up, and we go back there and roll the car out, and it's just an absolute dead set jet of a thing. And it was just a little bit too easy.
Did you have to do any tweaking?
No, hardly any.
Wow.
I mean, every time we put the car out in another session, it just went faster and faster and faster. It was crazy, and you just like waiting for something to go wrong, basically. And I was teamed with Rick Kelly that year, and we got on great. He was, I had a huge amount of faith in Rick. And we made a great pairing, and the car was just fantastic. And so I went through practice, and then we went into qualifying on Friday. And it was an amazing qualifying session. it finished with myself, Mark Scaife and John Bout all qualifying in the 2:07.9 bracket, so 2 minutes 7 seconds 0.9. So the first time anyone had been in the 2:07s as well, and 3 of us were separated within 1/10 of a second. So it was an epic qualifying session. And so the following day, we go through our practice and we go through simulation for the shootout, and the top 10 shootout for me is always will be and always was just an amazing part of the Bathurst weekend to be a part of. That hour and a bit or whatever it is at the end of Saturday when everyone sits there glued to their TVs or sit at the Bathurst racetrack just watching each car do that one lap is just a mega part of the weekend
100%.
and an honour to be a part of. And so I knew what I needed to do was just drive the car as bloody fast as I can. I was prepared for that, and that's the idea, obviously. Funny that, is to be as fast as you can. But there's all sorts of, people make all these comments. It's a long race tomorrow. It doesn't matter that you're not in the shootout. What a load of rubbish. Everyone wants to be in the shootout. It's what it's all about. And so, just did the prep, and I was probably a little bit more focused than what I normally am for some reason. But I was confident in the car. I knew it was very good. And off we went and did our lap, and I just knew I was ready to just push it as hard as I possibly could.
Each of the 3 sectors as well, I'll add, were like insanely fast, like a lot quicker than any of the other drivers as well.
Yeah, it just started to come together right from the beginning, and I just had huge confidence in that car that day, and it had been myself and my engineer Eric Pender had we had a great relationship. He was so good at what he did, and he had this sort of subliminal, I think, kind of. We had one of those relationships where it was almost unspoken in some things. Our terminology was good. He understood my terminology. He knew what to do. He knew what I liked, and the car was just set up beautifully. And
dream situation.
Yeah, it was, and it was one of those things, and it just all came together. And you crossed the finish line, and I knew it was a good lap, but I didn't. I also made a mistake in it. I mean, I made a significant mistake at the dipper, and I missed a gear. Basically, we're talking the good old days when the drivers actually had to do some work in a supercar. Had an H-pattern gearbox and all sorts of things, and none of these these easy things we got these days. And so I missed a gear. I came out of the dipper, and you just jam the gear lever across the gate into the next gear, and I was so sort of in the zone and tensed up that I went to change gear, and instead of going from second to third, I went from second to first. And so that cost us a little bit of time, and it sort of just it frustrated me, but I realised quite quickly that it's a short run from where I missed the gear to when you get on the brakes again was a short distance. So I knew I'd cost some time, but I didn't know how good it was, and a lot of drivers use a thing in the dash that gives you a plus or minus on your lap time, and I never used that because I always used to. Every time I did, I used to look at it and then make a mistake. So I don't run that, and so it was just a matter of doing the best, and at the end of the day, as I said, you just drive the car as fast as you can. And so I came across the finish line, and Bob's your uncle. There was a funny looking time on the dash, and that was that. So
did you think it was a mistake at first?
Initially, I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And then the radio went mental, and there's screaming and yelling and all sorts of stuff. And but the most significant bit by far is we used to drive down the pit lane the wrong way. So I drove down the pit lane, and the thing that made it for me more than just doing the lap was the response from the pit lane and the teams and everyone coming out and actually acknowledging it for something quite special, and without that it wouldn't be the same by any means. So I'll never forget that moment in it, and fortunate to play a part in the Bathurst folklore history.
100%. That you must have had like some very good omens at Bathurst, because that same year not only did you win the Bathurst 1000 that year, but you also won the Bathurst 24 hour. What is it with you and Bathurst?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I know we've talked a lot about Bathurst. It's like, to be honest, it's my favourite event on the motorsport calendar. But I think there's just something so special about winning it, and you've gone and won it 4 times, and then 5 if you add the 24-hour.
Well, if you add the 24-hour, that's like 4 races in one.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. But I can't claim that. Yeah, that was an interesting year. I mean, 2003 with Peter Brock and Jason Bright and Todd Kelly running that race. Holden were just so immersed in the sport back then, and they built these cars to race in a category specifically, and then there was this Bathurst 24-hour race, which didn't last too long. I think it only went for 3 years or something, and we happened to win the last one in the 427 Monaro, which is coming to New Zealand very shortly. That car, it's going to be at the historic Grand Prix at Taupō on the 19th to the 21st of January in the new year. So that car is the first time it's been out of Australia, and it's going to come to New Zealand and come to Taupō.
Way.
So fans of that kind of stuff, and obviously car that Peter Brock drove as well. You'll be able to see it up close and personal, and it's going to do some demo stuff on the racetrack. I'll probably do a few laps on that, which will be epic. So yeah, it was an incredible year, 2003 for those kinds of things, and it was, as I say, lucky to be a Holden driver at the time, and Holden Motorsport was doing a lot of things, and I was lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah. Can you, like I did just say, we have talked a lot about Bathurst. I just love Bathurst so much. I could talk all day about Bathurst. Haven't been, but it's definitely on my bucket list. But,
you need to get there.
I know you've won a lot of other races as well. Can you kind of just talk us through some of your most memorable wins outside of Bathurst?
Oh, can I? I don't know. I can, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of different things that I've done, but some of the best things, certainly winning at Pukekohe, when the champion,
that was iconic.
When the championship made the decision to come to New Zealand and have a round of the championship in New Zealand and go to Pukekohe. I mean, it was just such a significant move in broadening supercars. And obviously every year that's come here, the New Zealand fans have come along and supported in their droves, and that continues next year when they come to Taupō for the first time.
I'm so excited to be back in New Zealand. I cannot wait.
Absolutely massive. So that's huge, and so to be a Kiwi driving an predominant Australian domestic championship, sport comes to New Zealand, and then you go out and win. In front of a home crowd
Fairy tale kind of stuff.
And Bathurst is mega because it's internationally famous and obviously very significant in New Zealand. So, but the feeling of winning at Pukekohe and seeing the crowd and everything, it's actually hard to beat. So those wins there and the success there is unforgettable. So those are big standout. There's others throughout my career. I mean, I loved racing at the Gold Coast, for example, back in the day. Those were some of my favourite races, and was lucky to have success there as well. But I suppose. The significance of the supercar stuff stands out. But then there's other things. When I came back and we was involved in the Super Tourer Championship in the early part of the last decade, that was a lot of fun, and that's the likes of Scotty McLaughlin was coming through, and SVG was coming through, and all that, racing with those guys in a domestic championship. It was a real shame that didn't fly for longer and have bigger success, because it should have done. Unfortunately, motorsport in New Zealand was going through some very strange, troubling times, and unfortunately it fell apart. But again, it was the beginning of some other significant careers as well. That Super Tourer stuff through that period. And it was a lot of fun, to be a part of. So those were good. And then I've had the chance to do other things in other cars along the way. But it's hard to go past supercar stuff, really.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of Scott McLaughlin and Shane Van Gisbergen, two icons alongside you. Already. But I would love to get your thoughts on Shane Van Gisbergen going across to Chicago, racing his first NASCAR race, and just winning. Like, I knew he would do well. Did I think he would win? I'm not sure. But seeing him win that, what were your thoughts? Because I know from there it was so exciting.
It was just so him.
Yeah.
I mean, all the factors were there.
Yeah.
No one had ever raced there before. that's a pretty big one, right?
Good plus for him.
Yep. The car, that new car of the future. What do they call it? Whatever it's called. What do they call it? The new NASCAR. Is it called car of the future? I can't remember.
It's something like that.
It's something like that. Was more, I suppose, aligned with what he was used to.
Yeah.
But the ideal car for Shane to adapt to. Like it's a quite a big car, quite heavy, big, rear wheel drive, big engine in the front. Really, it's sort of, that's his MO. That's this kind of stuff where he just gets in and works it out within 5 seconds flat. And I said to someone, a few people in the lead up, actually I was there in Chicago a couple of weeks before the race because was on a trip over there, and the guys that I was with, we all walked around where the track was being laid out at the time, and we were sort of looking at it and we're just going, man, you know what? I would not be surprised. It would not actually surprise me. I'd probably be shocked, but I wouldn't be surprised if he wins this.
A lot of Americans were surprised that he won.
Well, they didn't know him.
I know, and I was talking about this with someone else the other day, and I was saying I think he probably had an edge as well because no one sort of knew him, no one knew what sort of race style he has, and for me, I love especially when he qualifies a bit further back because you just know you're going to see aggressive Shane Vingersberger.
Yeah, I mean he could have easily probably been on pole. I think there was a few little things. He might have made a little mistake or whatever. But I mean he was so close. Considering how I think wasn't he fastest in the first practice session or something?
So, yeah.
So that was setting the tone. I think they all probably would have started to sit up and take notice when he did that.
Yeah.
But as I say, his ability to adapt and learn, and a new racetrack to find the push the envelope so quickly, and very challenging conditions. Obviously, the rain delays and the issues with all that too may have probably helped him more than them.
Yeah.
But still to get the job done is just fairy tale stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to be exciting 2024. Now having more interest in NASCAR than probably what we've ever had before.
Yeah.
Since Marcus Ambrose went over there and did NASCAR, there'll probably, there was more interest in it having, someone like that who'd been such a big name in Australasia going over, so we paid attention to it. But with Shane going over there, I think there'll be more interest in NASCAR than there's been from this part of the world for a very long time.
Yeah, I've already ordered some NASCAR T-shirts to wear when I watch, and I'm embarrassed a little bit.
Maybe you should be the importer of all the merchandise.
Maybe I should. Actually, that's not a bad idea.
I shouldn't have said that out loud.
These next two questions always tend to put people on the spot, so sorry in advance.
Oh, God.
But looking back on your career, what is kind of one thing or two, if you can't decide, two things that you're most proud of out of your career?
Jeez. That is put on the spot.
I did warn you.
Oh, man. That's really hard. I think that I probably could have focused a little bit more sometimes on actually just more the racing side of stuff. But I spent a lot of time, getting attached to seeing what the other opportunities were from being involved in the sport, more so here in New Zealand. And I put a lot of effort into it, which was also a catch because I was spending so much time making the most of the opportunities that were presented. Then there was the catch to that was I probably wasn't as home as much as I should have been. So my poor wife was handling all the things back there with kids and all that kind of stuff. So I'm probably not so proud of that bit, but probably the fact that I was able to and put a huge amount of effort into doing things here in New Zealand, that has now allowed me, I suppose, to not be immersed like I used to be in the sport, but still today have the opportunity to do things now that can also help in other areas, and created that brand that has allowed me to be what I am today, and outside of being a professional race car driver, do a lot of the things that I am doing, and give back, be a part of giving back to the people that have really supported me, and so you do that through be a part of charity stuff and bits and pieces, and where you can, and also I'm trying to do my part on the road safety side of stuff by getting some change through using my recognition, I suppose, to be able to do that. So those kinds of things I enjoy doing, and it is part of the return of that support that you got, that I got as a driver, through the several decades of being professional. So I'm quite, proud of being able to do that now. And but as far as the sport goes and what I'm proud of, I mean, it's difficult because I see it differently looking at it now. But you were only given the chance to do that because of so many other people that got behind you and gave you the chance to do it. So yes, you put a lot of effort in, but it's being believed in as well by a lot of people, and especially in our sport. We were talking before we came on air. It's the cost of it, the financial side of it is just so huge.
Staggering.
There's been so many that have allowed me to live the dream that I have, being a professional race car driver. And so it's really important to give back as much as you can. What I'm really proud of is watching and seeing the continuous amount of drivers from New Zealand continue to showcase their ability.
Don't worry, we're going to talk about that in a second.
As the best. So, and I've really enjoyed helping a few along the way. Achieve and do a little bit of mentoring with that stuff. That's been a lot of fun and really enjoyable. But that's a really difficult question,
point, isn't it?
Yeah, really difficult question. I don't know. I just feel I was lucky to be in the right place sometimes to make the most of some stuff, and the best things are now the most rewarding stuff is giving a little bit of it back.
For sure. And then second of the...
So I didn't really answer that very well.
No, you did. No. Second of the more harder questions is, knowing what you know now, what would you tell little Nerve before he got into the racing, like racing as a professional race car driver? One piece of advice.
Well, it sort of is living what I did sometimes, but I think that I could have definitely done it better. And the advice that I really press on the drivers coming through today, and the ones that want to make a name and are at the beginning of their journeys, is understand what the word commitment is properly, and decide if you can actually live by the true definition of that. Because if you can't, and you think you're committed, but if you actually look it up and go, well, I could have done more there, or could have done there, then you're just not gonna make it. And therefore make the most of every opportunity that's given to you. So because you never know, it could be the last one. It could be the last one. So
especially in motorsport. As well,
so don't have a regret on the flip side and go, you know what? Damn it, I should have been better prepared. I should have put more effort in. I should have, been more focused. I shouldn't have been distracted, all that kind of stuff. Because they just, these days, it's so hard to maybe get another chance to showcase. So don't have that regret, basically. That was the easier question to answer.
I'm glad. I'm glad I left that one second then. Before we wrap this all up, I really want to talk a little bit about the supercar season in 2024. 2023 was a bit of an interesting season for a lot of different people. New Gen 3 cars, no more Holden, which was, oh my God, was so sad.
A lot of people aren't getting over that.
No, I don't think I'm still over that. But anyway, we have to be. It's not here anymore. Lots of different teams had lots of different seasons. Like, it was quite different across the board. In terms of Brodie Kostecki winning, I think he was the deserved winner. He had an epic season. In terms of looking ahead to 2024, for me, there are a number of front runners, and I'd love to discuss this with you. For me, obviously, Brodie Kostecki. I think Will Brown and Brock Feeney, who are both going to be at Red Bull, can never really count out the Shelby guys, Will and Anton. Then you've got people like Cam Waters, Chaz Noss. There's a number of guys up there that could really take out the 2024 championship. What are your kind of thoughts on 2024 knowing what you know now from the 23 season?
Yeah, well, you have done your homework. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, I've watched every race.
There you go. So Erebus are going to be really strong again with Brodie. I'm not so sure about LeBrock. He's got to find some consistency, but maybe the team will provide him with that.
I agree.
So it's a huge opportunity for him. So that's an example of make the most of it, right?
100%.
Because if he doesn't make the most of it, that could be the last shot that he gets, right? Will Brown's going to have to step up.
Big shoes to fill.
Yeah, he just didn't find that consistency that Brodie did. I mean, he looked so good at the start, and he was very good, and there was moments all the way through. We won't dissect it fully, but he sort of towards the back end of it just wasn't quite as good as he needed to be. So I'm not sure about that. So he's got big shoes to fill. He's going to have to work really hard up against Brock Feeney. Brock Feeney's really coming on. He's superb, and his dedication to commitment is definitely probably one of the best that there is. So Will Brown's going to have to find another gear to keep up with him. But the Gen 3 thing worked mostly well. Yes, there was comments and there was some issues and there was failings. That's a new car thing. There's some that shouldn't have happened. It should have been better. Obviously, Shane had some real issues with a few significant bits of the whole process, which was fair. But he let it get to him a little bit too much, so that affected some of his outright performance. It was a shame he didn't get to take it right down to the wire with that crash with Will Brown, which was completely it was unavoidable because he was blindsided completely. It was a shocker. It was a real shame for that. So we didn't get to have that fight that we were hoping for. But the Gen 3 thing. A lot of it worked well. Obviously, there's parity issues. Hopefully, with all their wind tunnel testing that they've done over the last few weeks, we come back to 24 and we've got that sorted. They have to have it sorted. If they don't have it sorted, it's going to be a bit of egg on the face for supercars. So there's work to be done there. It's not far away. When you've got a car like the Gen 3 car, tiny differences do stand out more so, and there's nothing to hide behind because the cars are so designed to be so much more similar. So if they get that right, then we're in for a hell of a season. We really are. And you didn't mention Matt Payne and Richie.
I've got him. Don't worry. They're coming up.
So they're going to be a bit of a powerhouse, I reckon. And so we've got a big list of drivers and cars and teams that are actually have thrived around Gen 3. And that's the design of it, to give more people a chance to be competitive. And so that's what I'm looking forward to for next year. Young Ryan Wood, who's also debuting with Walkinshaw Andretti United, very much a rookie. He's exciting, going to be great to watch. And then I only heard yesterday someone brought up that Jackson Evans is actually now going to be driving.
I just saw that.
Yeah, which is out of left field and brilliant. So Jackson is an absolute superstar driver as well, and so him to be committed with Brad Jones Racing next year alongside Andre Heimgartner is going to be mega for that team, and great for Andre as well to have someone else in that organisation that's going to be pushing him. So lots to look forward to, and it ain't no walk in the park for Brodie next year. It ain't no walk in the park.
He's got a lot of good drivers breathing down his neck.
and they got a jump. Did Erebus? They did a brilliant off season to be prepared as what they were to get a jump like they did, but they were consistent too. Brodie, don't let
and
me
his
bloody
engineer George. I think they just work so well together.
Yeah, so it's not like it was a fluke or anything like that. No. They will come out next year fighting hard and definitely, obvious contender. Yeah. So there's a lot to play out. Topol will be amazing. What's that? 5 Kiwis in good cars turning up here. That's just going to be a hell of a show.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of Kiwi drivers, Matt Payne, I want to talk about him for a second. Now, I just want to boast a little bit. I called it before the Adelaide 500, and I've got a video that I can show you for proof.
To prove it, right.
I called it that he was going to get on the podium in the Adelaide 500. I think he had a shaky start.
You didn't back him to win, though. You said podium.
I did say podium. I wasn't going to put that out there because I didn't want people to come for me in the comments.
Yeah.
But I think his start to the 23 season was an interesting one. He wasn't qualifying too too well, qualifying
Yep.
like in the 20s and everything. And then sort of midway through the season, out of nowhere, he started getting into top 10 shootouts, qualifying in the top 10, all that sort of stuff. And I just saw the momentum that he had going into the Adelaide 500, and it reminded me a little bit of Brock Feeney's 2022 because he won the last
round,
race
exactly.
at Adelaide 500. And I just had this feeling that Nat Payne was going to do the same thing.
Well,
How excited are you about Nat Payne? Because for me,
I am.
I think it's so bloody exciting.
Yeah, he's awesome. Another great young talent, great personality.
He's young as well.
Yeah, very young, and he's clearly been given the opportunity because he was believed in, and it's been justified. He bookended the year. So he started in 2023 at Newcastle by spewing in his helmet. At the beginning of the first race, and then he finished with a race win. So what an incredible season.
Yeah.
And Grove Racing took a little while too to get. I mean, they weren't providing him or David with the best stuff to start with. They were they were definitely a bit up and down, but they clearly worked very hard, and they've got great people there. A lot of ex 888 people there, who are brilliant at what they do.
Yeah.
So they've really justified a lot of the decisions they've made at the end of the year by achieving what they have, and with I think Richie turning up, that's going to provide them with another real powerhouse of information, and also provide the pressure that the team needs and Matt needs as well to keep evolving. Right, 100%. You need pressure, and so those two are going to be a real great combo, and there's no ego.
No.
So that's really important.
Yeah.
They're driven to win, and I think they'll support each other really well and give the team a huge amount of resource, as in talent, and those kinds of things to give them a great shot next year.
100%. I think 2024 is shaping up to be one heck of a season for supercars,
and around the rest of the world too, for Kiwis doing the things that they're doing. It's we got a lot to look forward to.
Mitch Evans in Formula E, I think he's going to also have a good year.
Yep, and Nick Cassidy, because they're teammates.
Yes.
Because they're teammates as well. That could be interesting. That one, I hope that doesn't end in tears. That those two, because they're going to be both very competitive. So that's phenomenal. And then obviously, hopefully Liam
Lawson,
Liam's year next year just gets better and better with a bit of luck. So I mean, we're always watching with interest to see what craziness goes on in Formula One land, because they're often la la land most of the time.
We're a pretty small country, but I think we definitely pull our weight in terms of motorsport around the world.
Well, of course, there's Scott Dixon and Scott McLaughlin and Marcus Armstrong in IndyCar as well. Hunter McElroy's over there as well in America racing in IMSA. Earl Bamber's, which part of the world he's in. I don't think he mustn't live anywhere, I don't reckon. He must just live out of a suitcase. Brendan Hartley back again as well with Toyota doing his thing, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah. Bloody good.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, that pretty much wraps it all up for today. I wish there was another word that I could use to describe how grateful that I am that you've been here today.
I wouldn't. That's fine.
You have been amazing to chat to. Thank you so much.
Oh, you've been amazing. What a great interview. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you. Well, I'm really glad that you're here, and I really hope that this is just the start of my motorsport media journey, because...
Well, I think you've started pretty well. I think
so
more
too.
about it than what I do. So
God,
I think someone should be employing you.
Well, if anyone's listening. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for listening, and that is it for this episode.
Have a safe and happy Christmas.
Yeah.